Hello everyone. Welcome to my channel. Please subscribe and keep watching more details. Bold and the beautiful spoilers. Luna's seduction and Deacon's advice. In the dim lighting of Forrester Creations' private design room, Luna Nozawa stood before the mirror, wearing a silk gown that clung to every perfect curve. It wasn't one of Eric's original designs. This one was her own creation, crafted with one very specific purpose in mind. The neckline plunged low, the hem brushed dangerously high, and the color was a smoldering wine red, passion-made wearable. Her pulse raced as she smoothed her hands down the fabric. Tonight wasn't about innocent flirting. Tonight was about sealing the deal. R.J. Forrester had been distant lately, soft, polite, conflicted, and Luna was tired of playing safe. If he wouldn't take control, she would. Whether it was insecurity or outside interference, Luna decided to push aside all distractions and reignite the spark that had once made them inseparable. Tonight, she whispered to her reflection, RJ won't be able to think of anyone but me. But while Luna prepared her seduction strategy across town, someone else was deep in conversation, not with silk and seduction, but with bourbon and brutal honesty. Deacon Sharp leaned back in his chair at Il Giardino after hours, feet propped on an empty chair, swirling a glass of top-shelf whiskey. Opposite him sat R.J. Forrester, hands tangled in his hair like a man twice his age. What am I supposed to do, Deacon? R.J. groaned. I love Luna. I do. But that night with Zende, I thought I could forgive it, move past it. But every time I look at her, you see him. Deacon finished dryly, sipping his drink. Kid, I've been there. More times than I care to admit. RJ sighed miserably. Am I weak? Is that it? Should I fight harder? Or am I just dragging her through something I'll never get over? Deacon rested his glass down slowly. His tone softened, uncharacteristically solemn. You're not weak. You're human. Look, love doesn't always come in clean packaging. Sometimes it's messy. Sometimes it's downright ugly. But the question isn't what happened. The question is, does she make your life better than it was without her? RJ sat still, absorbing that. Deacon leaned forward. Because if she does, then you fight for her. But if all you're doing is replaying pain, you let her go before you ruin each other. RJ didn't answer, but the guilt in his eyes said everything. Meanwhile, Luna lit scented candles in her apartment, heart racing faster with each flicker. Rose and sandalwood are Jay's favorite combination. She'd even dimmed the lights to that warm amber glow he said made her skin look like molten gold. On the coffee table sat his favorite snacks. A playlist of their first road trip cued softly in the background. She inhaled and exhaled. Everything was perfect, except her nerves. What if it went wrong? What if he rejected her? What if this bold move made everything worse? Her phone buzzed. RJ, be there in 10. She froze. 10 minutes. 10 minutes before everything changed. For better or worse, RJ parked outside Luna's apartment building and sat in silence. Gripping the steering wheel? Deacon's words rattled around his head. Does she make your life better than it was without her? His answer came instantly, yes. Even at her worst moment, she still made his world brighter than anyone else ever had. She was loud laughter and soft apologies. She was barefoot dancing in kitchen light. She was warmth. She was chaos. She was his. So what was he doing? He exhaled sharply. It was time to stop running from his own heart. Luna heard the soft knock. She steadied herself, then opened the door, and RJ's breath caught. There she was, draped in fire-red silk, eyes glowing with everything left unsaid. Vulnerable, brave, terrified. Wow, he whispered, voice husky. She smiled shyly, suddenly unsure. Too much. He shook his head slowly. Not even close. She stepped aside. He entered. The door clicked shut. For a long moment. They simply stood there, tension thick as electricity. Finally, Luna spoke softly. RJ, I don't want to force you into anything, but I wanted to remind you of us. Of this, she reached for his hand, pressing it to her racing heartbeat. This is yours. If you want it. If you still want me? His eyes darkened. All hesitation melted. He pulled her close. I never stopped. Their lips collided. Not gentle, not cautious, but hungry. Desperate. Everything they'd been holding back erupted at once. Clothing fell to the floor, like forgotten doubts. Candles flickered as bodies tangled. Every touch said, I'm yours. Still, always. Later, tangled beneath warm sheets, Luna whispered, So, where does this leave us? RJ brushed his thumb across her cheek. Exactly where we should be. She smiled the first real smile in weeks, across town. Deacon finished his drink and smirked too. Himself, kid, better have listened. The shadows of the Forrester mansion stretched long across the polished floors as Luna Nozawa paced restlessly in the guest house suite she now occupied. Her reflection in the mirror stared back, not the timid intern who once stammered around Zende and fawned over RJ, but a woman on the brink of making a bold, possibly irreversible choice. The triangle between her, RJ, and Zende had simmered long enough. Steffi whispered one thing, Brooke pushed another. Ridge barely kept his distance from interfering, but Luna. She was tired of being everyone's project. If she was going to be judged for her choices, she'd better own them. And that was when the idea took root. Dangerous, seductive, impossible to ignore. She would stop waiting for RJ to step up. She would stop letting Zen's yearning gaze haunt her. She would choose, but not with words, dot with action, dot tonight across town. Deacon Sharp slammed a glass down on the bar counter at Il Gardino as Sheila shot him a warning look from across the room. They were finally stable, finally accepted, or at least tolerated. But when Luna showed up earlier that day, wide-eyed and panicked, asking him of all people for romantic advice, he nearly choked on his espresso. You want to seduce one of them? He'd sputtered. Or maybe both, she'd said, cheeks flushed, lips twisting in frantic defiance. Is that terrible? I want control. I want them to fight for me. I want them to know I'm not some little girl they can toss around like a prize. Which was reckless. It was messy. It was peak Forrester drama and Deacon. He lived for it, but he also knew too well how one impulsive night could ruin a lifetime of chances. So he'd leaned forward, voice low, offering words no one would expect from a man with his record. If you want to play with fire, sweetheart, fine. But make sure you're the one holding the match, not the kindling. As Luna stood in the soft glow of dimmed lamps, she clung to those words. She slipped into a silk dress the color of molten gold, the kind that didn't need approval, the kind that hypnotized. Her hair fell loose around her shoulders, lips painted the shade of temptation. This wasn't a plea, it was a declaration. A knock sounded. RJ. His eyes widened the moment she opened the door. Luna, what's going on? She smiled, slow, deliberate, entirely unlike the shy girl he'd known. You've spent too long thinking. Tonight, I want you to feel. He stepped in, breath faltering as she closed the door behind him. But just as she reached for his hand, another knock. Luna froze. RJ stiffened. She opened it. Zende. His gaze locked instantly onto her attire. Then RJ, then back to her. Heat, confusion, and challenge flickered all at once. You invited him. RJ demanded. Actually, Zende said, crossing his arms, I invited myself. Tension crackled like live wire. Luna felt her pulse thunder. This was the moment. I'm done being chosen. Her voice rang steady as she positioned herself between them. Tonight, you choose. But not just with words, with action. Silence. RJ swallowed hard. Zende lifted his chin. Both stepped forward. Hours earlier, Deacon would have shaken Luna by the shoulders if he'd known she'd go this far. He'd warned her desire was a weapon, but one that often ricocheted. Back at Il Giardino, he now scrubbed down the counter with restless irritation. Something gnawed at him. He pulled out his phone, thumb hovering over Luna's contact. Sheila slid onto the stool beside him, eyeing him with feline perception. You're about to play father figure again, aren't you? Deacon scowled. The girl's about to light up half of Los Angeles with a scandal her mom will choke on. Sheila's grin was sharp. Letter. That's how Forresters grow up, through scandal. He hesitated. Yeah, but I know too well what happens when passion turns into ammunition. She's walking a tightrope, one wrong sway, and either those boys will destroy her, or she'll destroy herself. Sheila tapped his hand, unexpectedly soft, then go stop her before she goes too far. Deacon grabbed his keys. Back at the mansion. Walls whispered with electricity. RJ single quotes L's hand brushed Luna's shoulder. Zen's gaze burned from the other side. She felt powerful, desired, finally in control, yet a voice echoed in her mind. Make sure you're holding the match, not the kindling. She drew a breath, stepped back. Both men blinked. Before this goes further, tell me why. Her voice trembled only slightly. Why do you want me? Not as a prize. Not as revenge. Not as history. As me, RJ answered first. Because you're the first woman who made me want to. Grow, not just coast. Zende followed because losing you once felt like losing my future. Her chest tightened. Before she could respond, the door burst open. Deacon. Hair wild, chest heaving. Hands raised like he'd just stormed a cartel warehouse. Okay, everybody. Hands where I can see him. No one does anything they'll need a lawyer for.